You have 15 seconds to ruin a wedding. What do you do in the 15 seconds? I release the bees. Wear a white dress to the wedding and say, "Who is that chick up there?" Bonus points for wearing a fake pregnancy belly underneath the dress. Bonus points if you're a dude. Bonus points if neither the bride or groom recognize you at all. Just stand in the island scream. Works best if you're not a child. While screaming, be sure to take off your clothes as fast as you can. And this just flashed me back to my brother-in-law's wedding. My wife was in the wedding party and I was sitting up front with our then 2-year-old son. The wedding is going smoothly when suddenly my son yells, "I gotta go potty." I take him out to giggles and the rabbi saying, "Well, when you gotta go you gotta go." We get to the restroom and my son says he doesn't need to go. So we go back in and sit in the back. 2 seconds later, "I gotta go potty." I take him back to the restroom and he says he doesn't have to go. That's when I decided to just let him play outside the wedding area, where he couldn't be heard, instead of risking going back in again. My wife joked that, had I come in again, there would have been a wedding and a divorce. Just to add to the fun, my son was sick all weekend and wound up puking all over himself and the table we were seated at during the reception. Then, apparently because fevers give him energy, he danced until 2 a.m., refusing to leave the dance floor. So, in a friend's wedding. She has an uncle who is a rather large and gruff man. We're in the south so everybody calls him Uncle Bear. We're about 15 minutes to the start the procession and the bride can't be found, so the maid of honor is rather discreetly asking around if anybody knows where she went. Uncle Bear then proceeds to holler across the sanctuary, "Hey y'all, I found her. She didn't run off, she was just in the crapper." In the middle of the best man's speech just yell, "I fucked the groom last night." Better if you're male. Call the groom's bride a whore. And don't close that goddamn door. It's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poise and rationality. Announce a pregnancy. No, start a pregnancy. Worse, end a pregnancy. Punch the bride. Here comes the bride, all dressed in red, I mean white. Object to the marriage. Under the reason the groom is gay. He's a closet lesbian. Awkwardness ensues. Saw a guy do that once. As a joke. Just blurted out, "Don't do it." People laughed. Then he made the joke 2 more times. And no one laughed. He was escorted out. The wedding continued okay. You can't ruin a wedding by objecting unless you have some mutual feelings with one of the people getting married. Otherwise, you just get asked to leave and look like an idiot and people will forget about you by the time drinks are served. Oh, I've actually done this. So back in 2011, I started sleeping with an ex-girlfriend that I had unresolved feelings for still. She was engaged at the time. Kept telling me she was gonna call off the wedding and move to NYC, where I lived at the time, to be with me. This went on for a few months. We'd visit each other, have a wild weekend, be madly in love, then go our separate ways and text non-stop until our next getaway. As the wedding date got closer and closer, and she kept putting off ending her engagement, I started getting more nervous that she wasn't going to go through with calling it off. And then when it was the week of the wedding, she finally started talking about how she wasn't sure what she should do, and who she should be with, etc. etc. So thanks to being raised on a healthy diet of movies and TV shows, I did the only reasonable thing one can do in that situation. Flew down and attended the wedding specifically so I could confess my love to her in person and steal her away from her fiancé. My plan was to make a grand gesture during the ceremony, because I was young and dumb, and also how often do you get an opportunity to do something like that in real life, right? But I didn't make it that far. I got into town 2 days before the wedding. She met me at my hotel that night after her fiancé went to bed. We boned down and then stayed up all night talking. She assured me she was gonna call it off the next day. I wake up the next day, and she's gone. She left a note saying she's having second thoughts and needs more time to think things over and that I shouldn't come to their rehearsal dinner because she can't control her feelings around me. Obviously, I show up to the rehearsal dinner later that night, get super drunk, and end up confronting her about us a little too loudly. Her fiancé's dad overhears, starts screaming at me, her mom interrupts and starts yelling at him, then at her, then the fiancé gets involved, and so does my ex, and the whole thing spirals into everyone screaming at each other fairly quickly. All the while I'm confessing my love for her and trying to justify my actions, and most of the guests are watching in shock at the Jerry Springer-esque shit show that has suddenly erupted. And that's when this other guy, Dan, butts into the chaos and starts yelling at her about how she said he was the one and they were going to run off together, and basically a lot of the same shit she had been saying to me. Yes, this all really happened. So she runs off crying, the parents continue yelling at each other, the fiancé gets pulled aside by one of his groomsmen, and I start interrogating this Dan fellow about his relationship with her and piece together that she had been running around with him the entire time she was having her affair with me. Needless to say, the wedding did not take place the following day. And here's the best part, 9 years later, guess who's happily married? My ex and Dan. That's right, he may have entered the race a little late, but somehow he's the one who ended up with her. If I had to isolate the exact 15 seconds I ruined that wedding, I'd probably pick taking that 7th tequila shot and then walking up to the bride at the dessert table to confront her about our months-long affair. Although, buying a plane ticket to your ex-girlfriend's wedding would also be a solid nominee. Take a heaving shit on the floor. Better on the wedding cake. On the wedding rings. On the bride. On the kiss. In the mouth. Eat the cake first before the bride and groom had a chance. Kiss the bride and the groom. They'll either kick my ass or question their feelings, which will then lead them to marrying me instead. The latter is the optimal outcome. Sadly, in your effort you missed both targets and kissed the officiant. The officiant is into it. Die. You okay, man? I'm okay, don't worry about me. Dying is a surefire way to absolutely crash a wedding and ruin the mood. Before you die, drop gallons of black paint over everyone, then die, and the wedding turns into a funeral. Before you die, yeet yourself into the wedding cake. Run over to the bride, 4 seconds. Kiss the bride, 3 seconds. Run to the cake, 5 seconds. Destroy the cake, 3 seconds. Run in and scream you said you would tell her she was your half-sister to the groom. Walk up to one of them and say, you looked better on Tinder. Have a seizure. I did that at college graduation, made it start like 45 minutes late. Write in the guest book, dear, name of the groom, I loved our special time during your bachelor party. Hope it doesn't end with that. Hot kisses from you-know-who. This way I don't abruptly end the whole wedding party atmosphere. Free food and drinks for myself. I stand up and say, what about the good sex we had last night, and sit down. Works especially well at sister's wedding. Get naked and jump on the wedding cake. Works better if you have an erection. Who won't have an erection while jumping on a cake? Yell out that the groom gave my sister genital warts last month. Right now? Start coughing. Pay one of the altar boys to call the bride ugly. Fire a nuke. Kiss the groom, none of my family know I'm gay. Shove a finger in the bride and groom at the same time while they're saying vows. How to ruin a wedding in 15 seconds. Leave a comment. And subscribe to this channel if you wanna see more same videos.